Hello, today we're going to be taking a look at the OUKITEL WP19, which is a rather unique phone because it does something that not really anything else on the market does. It promises to have a week battery life. A week of battery life. And quite interestingly, it chooses to do that in some odd ways, and I think there is some missed opportunities, but also some very good things about this phone as well. So, without further ado, let's take off the top. And the first thing I want to point out though is this was shipped in a bag. Like, especially with a phone, and actually I believe the phone did have a little damage on the screen protector / screen. We'll get to it in a sec. But, like, overall, like that kind of right there is not, especially because it was shipped in a bag, I just feel like they cheaped out on the shipping because there were some opportunities. And I've recorded this video a couple times due to camera issues, so I think the insert was flipped around the other way. And I think the camera also was flipped out, but mainly it's just got a little nick there in the corner there, which I don't know if, from what that seems like it's on, there's a little crack on the screen that's also messed up the actual screen protector. But for the most part, this is the phone. Now, first impressions will be interesting for some people, especially because this phone is quite large. I mean, it's thick. It's so thick, in fact, that when you carry it and you hold it for a long period of time, it is not out of the question for your arm to get sore. Additionally, it comes with basically standard USB-C cable and charging brick. That's the EU version. But for the most part, let's go through and take just the phone out. Now, this boy is thick. And, I mean, it is all around very, very thick. Now, to be honest with you guys, I've recorded this video a couple times because I've had camera issues. So, I think some of the things I want to come across, since I'm not really doing this 100% first impressions, sadly, thanks SSD for dying multiple times, is just that this phone is rather thick, and I've actually been using it for the last couple weeks. And I think most importantly to kind of go over is just some of the impracticality that's brought up by this phone. Not that it's bad, or not that it's built for a very niche market. And one of the examples that I like to kind of come up with is hiking. So for example, you're taking us on a hiking trip with your buddies, and you're going on that trip for a long time. Like, we're talking maybe like a week. You're going, camping multiple times. You don't want, an emergency contact device like this, for example, which is mainly what you'd probably be using this for, maybe sharing data, etc. You don't want an emergency contact device to be dying midway through your hike, because you definitely need to contact people if something were to happen. So having a weak battery life is a valid reason, especially if you don't have the opportunity to charge your phone. Additionally, the camera on here, I would actually say, is really good. I'd give it a 9 or an 8 out of 10. And honestly, while I think the camera is great, there was also some very missed opportunities with the camera. Especially if you're making a device this thick, you had a lot of opportunity to actually implement optical lenses. And I'm talking about moving optical lenses, because the amount of space that they fit some periscope lenses in, I believe Samsung has recently, the amount of space that they've been able to fit that stuff in, and then to have this much space and not take that opportunity is, I believe, definitely a missed opportunity. Additionally, the thickness of this device lends it to some opportunities of actually just putting a larger camera sensor, because, well, yes, this sensor is rather small. It's a 64 megapixel actual sensor. You had some opportunity to make the sensor actually larger, which I understand is much more expensive. However, I feel like by making a sensor much larger and turning this into a full-fledged hybrid, standard point-and-shoot camera versus just this thick boy with, some cameras on the back, I felt like that was also a missed opportunity. Because if you take a look at, example, some other cameras. So for example, here is my Sony RX7, which is a camera that I use all the time for anything B-roll related, and I take this pretty much anytime I'm traveling. Now, the biggest thing is this is a 20 megapixel camera, And actually, it's 20.21 something. I don't remember exactly. And there's I believe, like an inch sensor on the back of here. So you clearly, while yes, you have this big amount that hangs out, thickness-wise, it's not too far off. It's really not too far off. And to say something like, well, you had the opportunity to go through and make this some type of zoom lens, which, I mean, not to this standard. This zooms out something ridiculous, like 8 or 9 times. You had the ability to implement something very similar with a similar thickness. You had pretty much so much space in here to do stuff with and still have great battery life. Now, that being said, let's talk about the battery life. Now, to be honest with you, I've used this phone for probably been messing with this for a solid 2 or 3 weeks, and I am up to 67% battery life in that entire time. If I don't touch the device, only maybe like for 5 or 10 minutes a day, it drops about 3% in battery life. And if I use it consistently, I'll probably drop around 10%, which is a lot, but not a lot. I honestly have not drained, in using like, average regular day use things, I have not drained it particularly much. So the battery life is hands down best in class. There is no argument whatsoever. But some of the compromises that they've made to get this level of battery life, I also feel like are important to address. Most notably is the speakers. I honestly have heard better things from Wish, and that is saying it lightly. These speakers are, I think, the worst I have heard on a phone, because they only come out of this little hole back here, and while yes, I understand it has to be waterproof, they're bad. And to say that lightly, they are rather bad. The camera on here is great. We'll go over that in a sec. But I think one last external feature that I want to point out is you have the home button, or sorry, not the home button. The unlock button is done with a like fingerprint reader, so you can actually unlock your device without having to go through and put it on a screen. I like this this is, if you can't do it on the screen, that's a good way to do it. Also, I don't believe this is an OLED screen. Those are getting rather popular, especially for phones that are lower priced. So for this to not have an OLED screen, which what I mean by that is, of course, you don't actually have any true blacks. The most notable way to describe it is that when, of course, you have the black not actually being black, and you can tell when even if the whole screen was black, you tell that the phone or the screen was actually on. You also have a macro button and your volume buttons. Additionally, you have a headphone jack. Now, while a headphone jack arguably is 100% a dying breed, I think that most notably the reason why this is because you have such a thick phone, thick battery, that it makes sense that if you were carrying something out with you hiking, for example, what this rugged phone is designed for, you would probably, have headphones, and they would probably not be Bluetooth because they would die and you would have no way to recharge them. So this is understandably, while yes, having Bluetooth, dual SIMs, etc., very understandable that it would have a headphone jack, and I think it was a good choice there. Also, dual SIMs on this one as well. This is SIM tray is over here, which honestly, I don't know how I feel about it being super accessible, but yeah, you've got your dual SIMs, and you've got an SD card slot as well. So, let's talk about the camera, which is, I guess, one of the big features I want to point out on this. Okay, so we have Android 12 on this device, which a lot of times some phone manufacturers won't put the latest version of Android on there. So I guess credit to where credit's deserved. Additionally, let's talk a little bit about this camera quality. Now, you have a couple options. You have the option to shoot 4K. You have the option to shoot this full 64 megapixel frame size on the sensor. And you have a bunch of other options like infrared, night vision. Sorry, not just night vision. And like a weird, the slow motion is arguably probably the worst. But you also have like an underwater version, which I've found interesting as well. So, going back to our camera here. Let's go and just show you, first off, a flat out, 64 megapixel picture. Now, a lot of times you'll get some weird noise. So I'm going to just take a picture of the just standard, my camera that's recording this video now, and just take a standard picture of it. So most notably, the zoom on here and the noise is rather prevalent. This is a darker room, and especially this is a darker time of day, but to be able to read something like that directly off of from that distance is good. I would say the camera quality is rather good. The night vision is also one of the best that I've reviewed on this channel. We've got some really nice night vision. Let's see, which I'm surprised having all these sensors on the back here that they don't, or all these infrared lights don't actually take full advantage of that. But it definitely looks very nice. And sorry, that's not the night vision. Sorry. This is the night vision. There we go. But honestly, the night vision is very good, and the lights are very bright, which lends itself to a very usable experience. Front camera is also, I notice, slightly off in colors at times. It almost gives the appearance of being black and white. So if I take a picture real quick, the colors look very washed. Like, I don't know if you can see that too well on here, but the colors appear very, very washed. I don't know if that's because maybe the front camera assembly was damaged in shipping, but the front colors, in comparison to my camera here, which is rather, I would say, realistic in colors, this is very, very washed. Don't know if there's a way to adjust this or not. Don't know if there's a setting. Colors. Did I modify the? There's absolutely, yeah. The front camera just looks washed out of the box. So the video and stuff also for the 4K video, actually I would argue is one of the better ones, because quite simply the 4K video looks very crisp and very high detail. I know a lot of times when you get something that says it's 4K and you take a video and the quality is garbage, that it looks really bad. But if I come over here real quick, take a video real quick, zoom in, nice, really close to the lens. Take a look at what we're doing up here and kind of zoom out. As you can see, the video on here is, I would say, very good, especially when you start zooming in, because now you're looking at something that's, maybe 8 or 9 times, and you've got really nice view there as well. So the video quality, which also I should have displayed up here shortly, is really good too. So in conclusion, should you buy it? This phone, I believe, is trying to compete with a lot of the other rugged phones, and to be honest with you, this is not a practical phone for an everyday user. If you buy this thinking that you're going to take this with you on a trip, and you're going to then come home and use it like a standard phone, because trust me, when you sit up here, and if you're one of those people that like to look straight up in the bed and look up and type stuff, not only are you going to be jacked, you also are going to be in for a treat when that phone falls. Because trust me, I think the biggest thing you're going to realize is how heavy this is, and quite honestly, thank goodness they put padding on this, because it's not to protect the phone, it's to protect your floors. It is heavy, it is clunky, and fitting in your pockets, while yes, I have some gym shorts or whatever on now, if you have anything like work pants, like khakis, and you put this in your pocket, you're going to have an interesting time sitting down. So buy it if you actually have the genuine need for it. This is a niche phone, and it's very niche, and you should only buy it if you have the specific need for that all-day battery life. Other than that, there's really little justification to buy this phone if you are taking this around. You're going to find it's very impractical, very hard to carry with you, and the looks that you get from people when they see this thing and you take this thing out of your pocket will turn heads. And while yes, the camera is great, and yes, I feel like this is a good outdoorsman phone, I don't think that there is, even if you spend most of your days outdoors, I feel like you have to spend almost all your time and be very isolated from power in order to make this phone usable, or at least get the most use out of it. because even if you spend, maybe you go hikes every once or twice a week, and you spend maybe 2 days a week hiking, and you need that level of battery life, I mean, still, you're going to have to put it in your backpack when you go hiking, and it's not going to be something that's going to fit in your pocket that's super easily accessible. So that's just the question, is this is not a slim and thin device. And I guess the best way to summarize it at the end is to do the Nord to 5G or whatever, which has, I believe, a direct OLED screen, which means that it is entirely black, and it is probably a fifth of the size. So, just to keep in mind, that's which lasts pretty much all day too. So for you to say, yeah, I need the level of battery life, it's got to be very specific need. So thank you very much for watching. Hope you had a great day, and check out the channel for other cool tech related news, reviews, videos, things like that. Goodbye.